This is the Persevere podcast, and I am your host, Patty Post, founder and CEO of Checkable. We have some exciting things at Checkable I just want to tell all of you about. First of all, we have an app that is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. This is an app that is going to help you stay on your healthy routines, first of all. Second of all, this is how you access our telemedicine platform. Go see a provider. We have 8 different protocols. Let's say that you think you have pink eye. Let's say that you have diarrhea. Let's say that you think you have strep and you want to see a doctor. So that's how you do it. It's all asynchronous visits. So that's mean it's not going to be live. It's going to be answer a bunch of questions, and then they're going to get back to you in a few hours, and they're going to send a treatment plan, if you need one, to your neighborhood pharmacy. So download Checkable Health app. I would greatly appreciate 5 stars if you're asked to rate the app. It's a big thing. We have worked on this for a year and we are launching. And in our e-commerce store, we have now our diagnostics. We have a rapid UTI test, a vaginal pH test, 2 breast milk strips, one to measure alcohol, the other to measure nutritional value. And we are the only company that connects the user to a telemedicine platform through our app. So thank you. I will shut that down and we'll get right into the episode now. So I talk about entrepreneurship on this podcast, business, persevering, and today is a podcast that is about someone extremely influential in my career and as well as my brother Joel's career, and that is Paul Ehlen. Unfortunately and tragically, Paul had a plane accident on Tuesday of this week, on June 28th, and he died. It was a fatal crash in Montana. He was on his way to Minnesota, and he was flying, doing what he absolutely loved to do, a hobby of flying, as well as World War II aircraft. It was something that he devoted so much time to, and as well as the airmen and airwomen of Montana. I know he served a lot in Minnesota as well. I mean, even think of some of the things that he did with the World War II planes. He donated planes, the Fargo Air Museum, as well as he donated his time, most importantly. He would go to these air shows, just like in really obscure places. For example, Battle Lake, Minnesota. He would go to the air show and he loved it. He was such a great pilot. So unfortunately, that engine failure just caused him to crash and he died on impact. And we are feeling a huge loss. It was extremely impactful for my brother Joel and I because he was so formative in our careers. So he's on my mom's side of the family and very entrepreneurial, to say the least. But this man was charismatic. He was entrepreneurial. He was driven. He had so much generosity that came out of him. And he saw the best in people and he said it like it was. It was infectious. He was so charismatic. My brother said that when he worked with him, that the doctors would say, I just want some of Paul's blood. I just want some of that, of what he has. If I could have that, I could tap into a superpower. And that's what he possessed. He happened to be my first boss. He was CEO of Precision Lens, the business that was wildly successful. And he built that business and he changed the outlook of what people expected in a service provider and in a company. I mean that by they provided the best service in ophthalmology, from the surgery centers to the people that worked at the surgery centers to the manufacturers and the surgeons. They had the most state of the art. They knew their salespeople knew their stuff, where they were very trusted. They were in the OR with them. we would bend over backwards to help these surgery centers and to help these hospitals. For example, if they needed more lenses, if there was a lens that had a malfunction, we would send that next day. We would get it there early, no questions asked. And those are things that in the high-paced world of healthcare that I really took for granted at the young age of 23 when I was working in customer service at Precision Lens. The relationships, he was all about relationships, and he taught me that. And when I got this job, I thought, oh, well, I'm just a little customer service person. Like, what's the big deal? Because I saw these sales reps that were driving BMWs and Range Rovers, and this is in the early 2000s, and my brother was one of them. And I really looked up to them. I thought, well, my job's not very important. And I remember on the first day, he looked me in the eyes and he said, "This is the most important job in this company." And I was kind of like, well, why? How is this important? He said, "You are the first voice that customer hears. Whether they are very happy or whether they're very angry, you need to consistently deliver them the most positive experience as possible, and be friendly and be accommodating and essentially bend over backwards for that customer, because that is what the value is in our business. It's you are the value in the business." And I really took that to heart. And from there, that's where I say that he was so formative, because I have thought of that in every single role that I have had in a company. I've always looked at myself. He also used the word very early on, brand ambassador. And we use that now, but that was not used back in the 2000s. The way that he thought about things was very much of a visionary, even just the whole distribution part of the business. And everything that I've done is providing that value. What does the customer get of value from me? Why would they want to work with me and my company? And how even can I recognize things that can be done better? Because he would say that, what can be done better? What are you noticing here? What are you hearing? And that's where we did some things back with inventory, and in some of my cousin started working with me, Sharon, and we started to sort of change the way that we were doing things to make it more efficient for us and then for the customer. And he was all about that. And for my brother, my mom and I were really hit yesterday. And my mom was saying, both you and your brother are CEOs because of him. Like, literally, me and my brother are CEOs because of Paul. He saw so much in us. And when someone that is so successful and so much of a person of their word and self-made, and they see something in you, oh, it's just like, that is a superpower. Like, that's like, oh my gosh, well, if he thinks I can do it, well, then I must be able to do it. It's that confidence. It gives you confidence. And I want to give that back so bad. Like, how can I take what he did for me and do it for other people? So most formatively, he did give me the customer service job, and he was very formative in that. And he brought my brother Joel, recruited him to work for the company, and he did really well. And within the market of ophthalmology, and Joel is definitely very well known in the industry. But for me, most recently, I would not be talking to any of you as the Checkable founder and CEO if it wasn't for him. In 2020, once COVID hit, it was dried up. Funding was dried up. And I was in a hard part of the business. I had a couple of people that were coming to me and, trying to be involved in the business, and they just did not have what I needed to have in other leaders. Like they said that they did, they saw the opportunity and they were being very uh, opportunistic. And about the same time, I pitched to Paul. And Paul was known as an investor or as an LP in many different funds. He helped a lot of other entrepreneurs. He invested in funds that were in Minnesota as well as others around the country. He helped with surgery centers. He built surgery centers. He bought other practices. I guess he didn't buy the practice, but he was an investor. And in me, when I pitched to him, I was very nervous because I knew he was so successful and I didn't want to let him down. I knew that he had believed in me. And one of the first things that he said to me was, "Oh my gosh, an at-home strep test." That was the first thing that I sold. In my first medical device job, it was an at-home strep test. So he worked for Alere, which had been bought by Abbott, and he knew the lateral flow technology. So it made sense. And his questioning, and he was so when he said at the end of the call, he's like, "Yeah, okay, well, how about 300,000? I'll connect you with my banker tomorrow and we'll wire the funds and let's get to it." And it was like every prayer of mine was answered and it was awesome. We ended up doing some stuff together during COVID, which was a wild ride. But then 12 months later, I did another capital raise once COVID settled down, and he brought in the other two investors. And that closed. That was the first price round of the company. And when I say that I wouldn't be here without him, first that first check, but then the second one of bringing in the other investors. If you are so confident in me that you are bringing in other self-made entrepreneurs to invest in this with a hope of a return, I sometimes I feel like people think that like investing is like a charity. No, it is not a charity. This is a business. And when you invest, you are saying, especially if you are getting others, you are saying, this is a great opportunity. I think she can do it. I think she can make your money back and more. And otherwise they're not going to invest. But I mean, they would just put it to a charity then. And he was so formative. I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful. And my vision on my vision board is one day I will have my own fund and I'm going to start a VC fund and I will deploy capital and I will name that the Ehlen Fund because of him and because of our family and our legacy. We have lots of entrepreneurs on that side of the family, and he just is the quintessential entrepreneur that was so influential in so many people's lives. And I'm so sad. I was just trying to get him involved back in the business. Really because he was a bulldog. And when I say that, I mean, I say it with so much respect because not everyone can. He looked like a golden retriever, but he was a bulldog. And I remember this one time that I said that I had some people in the business that said that they could do things and they really couldn't. They didn't have experience in medical devices. They didn't have experience in clinical research. They didn't have experience in commercialization in the market that we were in, industry that we were in. And he got on a call because this group had given me a contract. And the contract at that time, I didn't know what I was doing. Everything was moving so fast. It was COVID time. Like I was trying to be very, very smart in what I was doing, but I was too trusting. And he got on this call, and this guy is going over the contract and what he's going to do for us. And and the experience that he has. And Paul looked at him and he said, I smell a fox in the hen house. And everyone just sat there. And we kind of sat back like, oh my gosh, did he just say that? Because this guy was trying to take a revenue share. He was trying to get like 10% of the company. He wasn't putting any money in. And he was really billing a lot for his friends. Like he was trying to bill me, get his friends involved, and then charge me and then use his friends. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, drop the mic. Like, sort of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. At the same time, thank you so much for saying that. Because after that, it was like, okay, we're not going to do this. He literally, the guy on the other side said, yeah, we think that this is fair, but if you don't think this is fair, then we probably shouldn't be talking anymore. And he's like, you're right. We shouldn't be talking anymore. And we literally all just hung up. His ability to say things that other people were thinking, his ability to speak truth and confidence, and just the amount of generosity that he gave. Like my husband we were blown away, my husband and I, when it was the first Christmas party for Precision Lens. And everyone from like everyone who worked in back and shipping to the sales guys to the attorneys, he had a Christmas party at Manny's Steakhouse in downtown Minneapolis. And this is the best steakhouse, like one of the best steakhouses in the entire country. And he had everything, like everything on the menu. Think of Australian lobster tail. He had big, huge bottles of wine and everything from dessert to steaks. And it was a celebratory party. It was so fun. It was just celebrating the year, the successes. It was so generous, and it made people really happy to work there. And it was one of those benefits that was like, oh, you didn't have to do this for us, but you did. And that's the kind of guy that he was. He had planes and helicopters and beautiful homes, and him and his wife would be so generous in bringing people, including just very thoughtful. And when I was texting my cousin yesterday about this, she was saying that he was always really, really generous with them, from trips to the cabin in Montana and helicopter rides. And I remember she was saying the Backstreet Boys concert. He flew down to Chicago for a Backstreet Boys concert and brought him back. It was like, so like sort of out of this world stuff. And he just did it without expecting anything in return. That's a very big lesson too. He was generous because he wanted to be generous, because his heart was generous. There's so many, and the other crazy thing about this is, if it wasn't for Paul investing in Checkable, I wouldn't be here in North Dakota either. Because what Paul did was he introduced me to the investors in North Dakota and their families. And I went, it happens that they have cabins by my mom and dad's in Battle Lake, but they invested in Checkable. And it happened that they knew everything that North Dakota had to offer. So in that introduction was the investment, but then it was introductions to the LIFT program, to BioND, to the Department of Commerce. And then subsequently, I moved December of 2020 to North Dakota. He loved North Dakota too. Him and his wife lived here, I think in the early 90s. And he had a great group of friends here too. So I wouldn't be here. There's so many things. And when I look at it, and my faith that God had it all planned. But that accident really shook us, and it made me like think deeper about all of this and the intentionality, and that those relationships mean so much and they can be gone so quickly too. And I felt, and I still do feel, a loss. Like, what am I going to do without him? Because I would call him. Remember calling him when I first needed to lay off my first employee. I didn't know how to do it. And so I called him. I said, I don't know. I feel really bad about laying this person off. And he said, well, when did you first think that you needed to let him go? And I said, ooh, probably a couple of months ago. And he's like, oh, well, that was 2 months too late. You got it. The second that you think that it's not working, that's when you got to do it. And it's not a bad thing. You have to think of it like you are offering them a better opportunity, that you are freeing them of this position that probably isn't working for them, and it's not working for you either. So let it go and move on. And that's what he would say. He would say at the end of phone calls too. Like he'd just check in quick in the morning, like expect a call around like 6:45 a.m. to 7:15 a.m. Quick update. Okay, got to keep moving. See ya. And then he'd hang up. And then, like, okay. But that's how he was. He had to keep moving. He had to, that sense of urgency. He always had that sense of urgency, which I think is what made him so wildly successful. The other thing that I really think about him was his love, deep, deep love for his family. I mean, for his mom, he helped his siblings, loved his wife so much. I mean, she was his soulmate. He talked about every conversation that I ever had with him. There's always something about whether it was his wife or his kids. And it brought him so much joy. And that was one of our most recent conversations, is that none of the stuff matters. It doesn't. What matters is his family, how much he loves them. I mean, even loving his dogs, just like so many times I'd be on the phone with him. There he is yelling at his dogs. And as much of like a larger than life person he was so normal too. Like he was incredible. And for me, I want to unleash something inside of me of just like unbridled, go after it. And now him watching me down from heaven, that Checkable is going to do something. It's going to make a huge impact. Him representing a strep test and then investing in a at-home strep test company, it makes sense. And I want him cheering from heaven. That's what I'm looking at, is him cheering me on from heaven. So for anyone that listens to this, if you have a mentor, if you have someone that has been close to you, also don't hesitate to call them when you think of it, because over this last weekend, I had a couple of times that I was going to call him and have this conversation because I wanted him to get back in the business. And that's my last text message. It was saying, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You're the only one that bet on me when no one else would. And then you got others to bet on me. I owe you everything, like board member, advisor, something. And I was going to call him over the weekend and I didn't, because there's always dogs, there's kids, there's stuff going on. And I wish I just would have woken up in the morning and called him, because now I'll never talk to him again. And I think the same goes for anyone. I'm sure every single person listening to this right now has those things of regret that you didn't make that call or you didn't do that last thing, and then someone's gone. And do it, parents, siblings. So this is my tribute to Paul, and I hope I'm continue to make him proud. I know he was proud of me. He told me he was proud of me. That's the other thing. If you have people that look up to you, tell them that you are proud of them. Show them that you acknowledge the hard work that they're doing or the successes, or be that mentor, even if it's not, it doesn't have to be a scheduled meeting. It can be the pop-in calls like Paul would do with me every couple of weeks. Those meant so much to me. The texts, the calls, so much. So we lost one of the good guys, but what God does, he called him home, and he needs him more up there than we need him more here, which is hard to imagine because there's so many people that loved him. So with that, I'm going to keep on persevering. I know that that's what he would want me to do, and be grateful for the people that are involved in the business, and for anyone of the family and anyone that worked at Precision Lens. Like, I have the absolute best memories from working there, and just of him and his family. And Paul, you're an amazing man, and I'm so grateful that you believed in me, and thank you. Signing off on the Persevere podcast. If you like this episode, if you love this podcast, I would appreciate a 5-star review. It's all that we ask around here. If you have any topics, anything, or any guests, message me, Patty Post, CEO. I am on TikTok and on Instagram, and I would love to hear from you. And we have a page, the Facebook page, Find You Persevere. That's the letter U, Persevere. Thank you again for listening. And everyone, keep on persevering in business, because it's worth it. And so are you.